Well, welcome folks. Thank you for coming to tonight for this time to hear from the candidates for the upcoming state election. It's good to be here together. As we gather here tonight, we do acknowledgement of country. As we gather on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri Tumbaga people, we honour and pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. I also want to give thanks to the Freedom of Faith movement who have helped to instigate these sorts of meetings all around our state with the upcoming election. And of course, our candidates who sit before us tonight, Josh Brown from the Labor Party, Kate Richardson from the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, and Dubbo from the National Party. So let's show our appreciation to them tonight. If anyone does need bathrooms, they're just out here through this door to your right and my left. As we gather, I'll just give a brief outline of what will take place tonight. After I give a little talk, we'll have the rules explained. The candidates will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. Then there will be set questions which will come up on the screen. There's a brief video for each question. Each of the candidates will have 3 minutes to reply to those set questions. And then we'll go to Slido to look at the questions that you've provided tonight. I know we gave pieces of paper, but it's advantageous for the running of the night if you put that through the app on your phone so that it can come up on my phone and we don't chase the pieces of paper all over the building. Well, it's good to be here. We couldn't be in the hall tonight because there's another activity taking place, and I think it's good to do these sorts of meetings. We have our yearly AGM in the church, and some people say, oh, you shouldn't be having that sort of discussion in the church, but it's a great place to gather, I think, and to have such a discussion. Paul, writing to Timothy, a young Christian, said these words from 1 Timothy chapter 2. I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. Having a political forum tonight isn't a non-spiritual thing. It's a good thing for spiritual people and all people to be joining together. So it's good that we're here tonight doing that. And we welcome those who will be watching this online tonight and over the coming days. So let me pray as we commence. Lord God, we give thanks for the country in which we live, for the freedoms that we enjoy, and for the democratic processes that we have. We pray for the upcoming election. We pray for our candidates, for all their planning and preparation. And we commit tonight to you. Be with us in the asking of the questions and with them as they seek to answer them as best as they are able. And Lord, we look to you, the King of all things, the one with all authority, as we walk together as the people of this nation and the people of this state. Amen. Amen. Just some little guidelines, some rules. I think they go without mention, but good to mention it nonetheless. So the candidates will be given the opportunity to answer in turn, alternating who goes first. So the candidates will not interrupt each other and we won't interrupt them. We'll give the time for them to have 3-minute warning for the 5-minute slot, and then for the 3-minute slot they'll get a 2-minute warning. But let's begin with the candidate introductions, and to kick that off, I've got Kate to go first. Kate.
So, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak here tonight. You have to bear with me because I haven't done this before, so if I stumble a bit, please keep your patience. So the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party has long supported Christian religious groups. Part of our freedom, liberty and privacy federal policy is that all citizens should be able to live privately not fearing the encroachment of the government or its agencies and their unnecessary intrusion at the behest of minority groups bent on control. We constantly see the unnecessary encroachment from left-wing ideology on religious freedom, and we stand against it. Freedom is our underlying pillar, including freedom of religion and association. No one should be vilified because of what they believe and what associations they choose to be involved in. We know that discrimination is occurring against religion despite religion's contribution to society across education, health and society's moral code. This contribution should not be undermined or ignored, it should be celebrated. Recently, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party have been in the minority in representing that freedom. Our upper house members, Robert Borsar and Mark Benasiak, stood against the voluntary assisted dying bill introduced by the same member, Alex Greenwich, who is now introducing the conversion therapy bill. The Shooters, Fishers and Farmers members were harassed and bullied by hundreds, if not thousands of citizens who opposed their stance. The Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party supported dying with dignity. Earlier, we stood against the abortion bill at the name of the Reproductive Health Care Reform Bill. Again, this was because the government did not research. There was poor consultation and the bill tabled was inadequate. As we see further encroachment on our religious rights and freedoms, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party will stand up against it. We do not control the government's office, but we can make the government accountable through scrutiny. Thank you.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Kate. We'll now hear from Dubbo.
Thank you, and great to be here. Everyone, nice to see you. Thanks for coming along tonight, and I think we're in a pretty happy space here. It's really nice to be able to spend some time in a beautiful church. I'm sure we're being smiled upon from above. I'm Dubbo. I'm the local state member for the Dubbo Electorate. Many of you might know me. I try and get around to all of the parts of the electorate and talk to as many people as I can, literally every single day. I had a great day in Mudgee actually, including opening of a school over there officially, St Matt's School, which, although not Anglican, is a great school and has had a fantastic uplift in recent times. So it was great to be able to spend some time with the school itself, the students. The new high school is in a fantastic spot, and that's one of the roles that I really love doing, is catching up with people of all different backgrounds and talking about what matters to them. Tonight, I guess we're focusing on encapsulating, we're focusing on faith and what that means to different people, and some of the questions that we're going to be looking at later are based very much on that. And to my way of thinking, if we value freedom of faith, then we actually do have to protect it. We are, if nothing else, we are blessed to live in this country. It's a country where we are free, we've got a free and peaceful democratic society, and it's one of the most free and democratic anywhere in the world, which I think is incredibly important. But one of the most important freedoms is freedom of faith. It's precious for millions of people across the state. It's got huge value, not just to individuals, but also to families, to faith communities themselves, and also it's actually really valuable to our society as a whole in New South Wales. So the simple message I've got around faith tonight is that it should not in any way be taken for granted. We all have a responsibility to help preserve and protect what is a fundamental freedom, and not just for now, not just for our current generation, but also for those that come after us, our children, our grandchildren, so that they can enjoy it too. Because if we do take it for granted, if we don't do what we need to do, then it will probably slip away. But if we can work to overcome some of the challenges, then we do have an opportunity to strengthen religious freedom, help faith communities stay strong, and also help strengthen our society as a whole. And I think that's a really important thing to strive for. It's certainly something you may have seen and heard the Premier talk about in recent times. He outlined exactly how that looks recently with 5 pillars that he's outlined for free and flourishing faith communities. And I thought I'd share them with you tonight. Number 1 is that we will always respect and protect the fundamental right to freedom of faith. That is the starting point. it should never become an option. Like, straight always has to be at the very front. It's one of those core freedoms recognised in international human rights law alongside freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. It's enshrined in the constitution of this nation. Now, we understand that for many people, faith is at the very core of your identity and your dignity as a member of our community, and we will always respect that. Secondly, we'll continue to support families who want to pass on their faith and their values to their own children. Again, really important. We'll do that with ongoing support for special religious education, and also with funding for independent faith-based schools in our community. We know that both of these tend to attract criticism for the support that we offer, but we also understand that faith is a really important part of life for many communities across the state. And if those families and communities are motivated about their education, their children's education, and they literally volunteer their time, their effort, they pay, then we will support that every step of the way, because we recognise that parents are the first educators of their children. Thirdly, we'll continue to proactively engage with faith communities on matters of public policy that affect people of faith. Last month, you might be aware, there was the very first meeting of the New South Wales Religious Communities Advisory Council. That's a new group established in December, and then all around formalising an agreement, I guess, basically between government and religious communities. So announced in December, first meeting was in January, and at that very first meeting, $10 million was announced to help strengthen security at places of worship, schools, community centres and buildings with religious symbols. So that's been a big first step. Increasing protection is actually the fourth pillar of the plan and goes on to around legislation that makes it a criminal offence to publicly threaten or incite violence on the basis of religion. And then the fifth and final pillar is ongoing support for all the festivals and religious events that faith communities really celebrate throughout the year. And that's been a huge success over recent times. So 5 pillars for free, flourishing faith communities in New South Wales. Freedom, education, protection and community support as part of them. They're based on overcoming the challenges facing our faith communities, strengthening religious freedom, helping faith communities stay strong and ultimately strengthening our society as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Dubbo. Maybe from Josh. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us this evening and all those online. I'd firstly like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Tullagun and Wiradjuri country tonight. Firstly, I just look around the room and I see that there's many people whose grandchildren I've taught and children that I've taught at the school I work at. Everyone knows that I'm a school teacher, and for the last 10 years I've taught at an independent Christian school in Dubbo. Where I actually attended there in primary school before going to the public system for high school in Dubbo. So it is a real issue close to my heart, what we're talking about tonight. Obviously, I believe and the Labor Party believe that people should be able to express their freedom of religion, and that's one of the core things to being Australian is pretty much live and let live. I can practice my faith, you can practice your faith, and we just leave each other alone. And that suits me pretty fine, I've got to say. So there's one of the things you do here is the Labor Party is against religion. That's not the case. I've spoken to lots of people in the Labor Party who are practicing Catholics. There's also people who are a whole range of other religions. There's Hindus, there's Jewish people, people who practice the Muslim faith in the Parliamentary Labor Party. It really does. It's a broad church and it encompasses lots of different religions, and that's a good thing. One of the reasons that I wanted to come along here tonight was that I just wanted to express that I really do value the questions that are being asked tonight. I've had a read through them, had a good think about the questions, and they are very important. I was going to go on a whole heap of stuff about what I was going to stand for, the different policies of the Labor Party, things that we can do in this election, but the other two candidates didn't, so I'll leave that for now. But basically, freedom of religion is extremely important to myself, and that's something that I think that we should be protecting in Australia, and that's really what makes us Australian, is that everyone can have a say, and that everyone gets to live their life as they want without interfering with others, and that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for the introductory talk. Just a reminder about the Slido. Some of you worked it out on the way in. We have got these sheets. It's advantageous for you to use the app on your telephone rather than a piece of paper. When you go on your mobile telephone and come to where we are, you'll see that the questions that have been provided thus far by tonight's people gathered here tonight. Some of these will be already answered in the questions that are being presented, but also can I just make sure you write a question, not a statement or something else. And also, if you like what someone else has said, you can press like, and that helps to indicate that there's more than one person interested in that one topic. So we're going to move now on to the questions that have been provided from Freedom for Faith. These are questions that have come from all around the state. First of all, there'll be a video, a short video, and then the question will come up again on the screen, and I'll invite each of the candidates to make a comment in response to that question. There is one of the videos that I tried for more than an hour or two to try and get it to work, but it doesn't want to work in the proper sense, but at least we'll see what's up on the screen when it comes. So here's the first question: religious institutions employing people in line with their faith.
Religious people and organisations have long played a crucial role in our communities. A large proportion of our education, health and social services are provided by faith-based organisations, and nearly all of Australia's largest charities have Christian roots. People of faith continue to contribute to our society's welfare because of their religious values, and governments recognise their contributions by partnering with them to deliver important services. This is now under threat from new laws that undermine the very heart and soul of faith-based organisations. As a result of recent amendments to anti-discrimination law in various states, faith-based organisations such as churches, synagogues, mosques, religious schools, charities and aged care can no longer insist that their staff adhere to or model their religious beliefs and values. At the federal level, the recent Australian Law Reform Commission consultation paper, issued at the request of the Labor government, escalates this threat. This strikes at the heart of a religious organisation's ability to preserve their ethos and effectively carry out their religious mission in service to their communities, and is a huge blow to both religious freedom and freedom of association. This is happening despite a growing awareness of people being seriously mistreated because of their religion, and the wide consensus that religious freedom is vital and needs to be protected. While it is right and proper to protect individuals from unjust discrimination, these new laws fail to get the balance right between the freedom of people of faith to operate faith-based institutions and the freedom of individuals who do not support that faith. And it is not hard to get the balance right. The Commonwealth Religious Discrimination Bill had bipartisan support on this issue, and the New South Wales Religious Freedoms and Equality Bill had the support of a bipartisan Joint Select Committee. Each of these had sensible mechanisms that provided robust protection against religious discrimination for individuals, while at the same time recognising that it was not discriminatory for religious bodies to operate in accordance with their religious beliefs. We allow other groups formed around a set of values, such as unions and political parties, to employ people who agree with their beliefs and ethos, but are now at risk of denying the same right to faith-based organisations. This state election, ask your candidates, will you support legislation that both protects religious individuals from discrimination while also protecting the freedom of religious bodies to operate in accordance with their values and to preference staff who align with them?
Well, that's the question, the first question that's being posed this evening. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to make a reply, and there'll be a 2-minute warning bell. And we'll kick off with Dubbo.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. For those who aren't aware, we actually had in September of 2021, we had the Anti-Discrimination Act of 1977 come forward, and we, as the New South Wales Government, supported amending that act to prohibit discrimination on the grounds of religious belief or activity where that activity is lawful. So we've done that, but in doing so at the same time, we indicated that we needed to wait for the federal government to pass legislation federally before we could then move on to the detail of what the New South Wales law would look like in amending that act. So we're actually still waiting for that interaction of the federal government and its responsibility with federal law, so that there isn't any constitutional discrepancies, I guess you could say. So that was amended based on then the federal government doing its bit. At the moment, as indicated in the video, Federal Labor hasn't taken a position necessarily on that, so we're still waiting for that to happen. But I think, as I pointed out earlier, and that remains our position, to still support that change, that amendment to the Anti-Discrimination Act of 1977. But as I mentioned earlier, I think the 5 pillars that have been announced by the Premier and supported by all government members is around those 5 pillars, and that, you know, the first 2 are really important: the need to respect and protect the fundamental right to freedom of faith, and the vision to continue to support families who want to pass that on to their own children, that part of their community. So look, we're absolutely heading in that direction. We just need some federal support, and I'm sure that will be not too far away, but I look forward to seeing what the federal government comes up with.
Thank you, do. Josh.
Yes, thank you. Dubbo raised a number of points that I've put on my notes here, actually, about the federal government looking at different legislation and those sort of things, and the Anti-Discrimination Act 1977. Dubbo probably wouldn't complain. I wouldn't complain if Dubbo didn't employ me in his office, because I don't share the same ethos as Dubbo, and I wouldn't have a problem not being employed in another faith-based school if I don't share their ethos. So that's pretty much where I come from. I do know, like Dubbo said, that with the federal issue, that the federal government is looking at some different laws there, and the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Act 1977 really does need to wait on that for make sure it's compliant with the Constitution. I did find some information here. The Prime Minister has previously given a commitment to protect teachers from discrimination at work while maintaining the right of religious schools to preference people of their faith and the selection of staff, which was welcomed by religious leaders at the time. And I note the Guardian last week reported that the Prime Minister has reaffirmed Labor's commitment to allow religious schools to hire staff based on their faith. And that's a good thing, I feel. Parents do have a right to have their children brought up and taught by people of the same faith. And that's one of the things that makes Australia, is that you're able to do those sort of things. New South Wales Labor will refer the Anti-Discrimination Act 1977 to the New South Wales Law Reform Commission for a holistic review. It's 46, come out 46 years old, so it's probably due for a bit of a tune-up there. But Labor expects any recommended changes to be fair, respectful and reflect the diversity of the population of New South Wales. So, like I said, I wouldn't have a problem not being employed in a faith-based school if I don't share that same faith-based ethos. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Please.
Thank you to Josh and Dubbo. So basically, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, because we're not a majority party in government, we would support the right thing regarding religious freedom. So freedom of association is a core tenet of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party, and we support the human right that people of similar beliefs have the right to join under those beliefs and form associations, and we believe in religious freedoms. This is the party, and this is also me. I see these rights systemically overridden by the left, who believe everyone is equal except those with values that don't align with their own. The Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party and I believe that any organisation centred around its religious beliefs should not have to abandon those beliefs to accommodate other religious beliefs or non-believers. So yes, we would support the legislation provided it was thorough and protected the freedom of religious bodies to operate in accordance with their beliefs. And I'm a bit like Josh, I don't believe that a teacher should be employed based on faith. Thank you.
Thank you for those answers to the question. We move now on to the next question, which is relating to poker machine reform. And this is the video that's silent, but there are some interesting statistics that will be on the screen. Maybe not. Well, here's the question. What is your party's response to the Crime Commission's recommendation? But more importantly, what will your party do to address the epidemic of gambling harm in New South Wales? Josh.
Thank you. I don't gamble on poker machines myself or any other form of gambling. Actually, I don't see it as a good investment for me. I do recognise that there's a huge problem with putting the proceeds of crime through poker machines. When my house got knocked off back in August last year, that probably went through poker machines to clean the proceeds of crime there. And also I've worked with people who have lost their houses to gambling addiction of poker machines. One sad case where I used to work out at the other class years ago was the husband couldn't read, didn't realise all the letters were coming in as his wife gambled the house away next to him. They ran at their house. Those are tragic, absolutely tragic. What we've seen is in the last 12 years, poker machine money go through the roof. Both parties have got plans. Labor's plan is to extend the mandatory cashless gaming trial. I was reading something the other day, it was about Aristocrat Gaming and Leisure. They were saying that cashless poker machines are the way of the future, and they're pretty much looking at going that way now as society goes cashless. One thing that Labor didn't do was open a casino, though. So other parts of Labor's plan, banning donations from clubs, political donations from clubs, that's a good move. Labor will introduce poker machine cash limits instead of just being able to rock up and load up $5,000 of cash straight into a machine and then just press elect to clean all the money. A limit of $500 per machine for all new machines. Gambling signage outside of the clubs, the VIP lounge, that will also be removed under the Labor government. Reducing the number of poker machines, so when transferring licences, reduce the number of machines by moving to a simple 1 in, 2 forfeitures for pubs and clubs. Labor will invest in harm minimisation, a $100 million fund. A lot of the problems are mental health problems with gambling addiction. So putting additional money into harm minimisation and responsible gaming officers in venues being introduced. That will be for venues of more than 20 poker machines, so people aren't able to get in after self-excluding, and introduce third-party exclusion and mandatory facial recognition to enhance self-exclusion. One of the things we've seen time and time again is people who want to self-exclude just being able to go back and gamble somewhere else. So that's the Labor policy. Thank you.
Josh, we'll now have Kate.
So the party that I represent have opposed the cashless gaming card since its introduction. As a party representing rural, regional and remote electorates in New South Wales, the impact this policy will have on the clubs in our regions makes support untenable. We've consulted at length with local pub and club operators in Dubbo and all over the state. They're frustrated at the lack of consultation they received before developing the policy, which is typical. The loss of jobs and income to our bush pubs and clubs will be enormous. The government package offered needs to do more to assist these places in the future. The Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party support measures to address problem gambling. However, there are better solutions than the cashless gaming card. We need to address the social and emotional health issues that cause people to gamble in the first place. This would mean a greater investment in health and support services. Honestly, we need more significant research conducted rather than relying on a single report. This is a knee-jerk reaction from the government that will have wider consequences. If the government wants lasting change, it will have to take longer to develop its policy. They have to consult properly and offer real compensation to the clubs and pubs. Thank you.
Okay, over to do.
Thank you. Interestingly, there are some similarities between what Labor's proposing to do and what the government is already doing. The one difference, and I've got no hesitation in saying that the New South Wales government, as it currently stands, is 100% leading the way when it comes to poker machine reform. There's not one simple solution to problem gambling, it's a range of things, and we're seeing that at a federal level as well, looking at advertising, for example. But unlike Labor, we support all 8 recommendations that came out of the Crime Commission report to eliminate money laundering in clubs and pubs. But what we're doing is doing it in sensible ways. So we will introduce mandatory cashless gaming. It won't necessarily be a card. For some people, it will be a card. So you might have a club like Dubbo RSL, for example, or the bowling club, that will use a membership card to allow you to load money onto that. But for others, it'll be using your phone or your watch to tap on and tap off. But we'll be making sure it's done in the right way, and it'll be up and running by end of December 2028. So there's a 5-year time frame to encourage everyone to understand what it means, to allow manufacturers, but importantly for us, regional pubs and clubs to be on that journey. That's a really important part of it. Whilst we need to be doing everything we can to reduce problem gambling in all its forms, and we're looking at one form of problem gambling at the moment, what we need to do is give people time, including coming up with better solutions to actually help things work properly. So there's a number of things around how we'll make that transition work, including all new machines purchased after July of this year will have to have a load limit of up to only $500. There'll be low loss limits set in as well during that cashless period, where you won't be able to double down on a limit that you've already set. So there'll be a cooling off period to reduce capacity for players to chase losses and fall into further trouble. So if you set a limit, you will have to stick to that limit. We're also removing VIP lounge signs. We're looking at buying back around 2,000 pokies over 5 years to allow smaller clubs and pubs again the opportunity of actually removing those devices, but at a premium for them. And the other really important thing we're doing is actually involving industry, like we tend to do with a range of things. And we will set up a transition task force. So that'll include New South Wales Police, Liquor and Gaming New South Wales Treasury, the Department of Customer Service, the Privacy Commissioner, along with industry reps and harm minimisation representatives, to make sure we've got everyone at the table to work through each of the problems as they come up. Regionally, as I said, we know the role that pubs and clubs play in being evacuation centres, social gathering centres in many of our smaller communities. It might be the only place for a social gathering. So we do value our pubs and clubs as all of those things. So there will also be a regional venue contingency fund established to help make sure that our smaller pubs and clubs have a way to get through. And part of this task force will be working with those that are finding it difficult for whatever reason to find a clear pathway and make sure they're supported. So this is one part of problem gambling. As I mentioned, federally, advertising needs to be looked at specifically, and there are a range of other measures we can take as a community, as a society, to help support people. This is one part of an ongoing equation. I think people's perception on what gambling is and what we accept these days has changed, and I think we're definitely on the right track.
Thanks, Steve. Our next question has to do with special religious education. This has been a quite hot topic in the life of the church community for some time, and particularly now. This video should work.
I'm Tom Eastlake. I'm a Christian special religious education SRE teacher in the New South Wales Public School. And I'm also a representative of the Interchurch Commission for Religious Education in Schools. In recognition of the benefit of SREs to both students and the broader society, the opportunity to opt into SRE classes in New South Wales in public schools is supported by not just the majority of the public, but also both sides of the New South Wales Parliament. SRE supports multiculturalism, it counters religious bullying, it supports cultural and religious identity, and it supports a student's spiritual well-being, which is one of the 5 pillars that the Department of Education has identified as critical to the student's ability to connect, succeed, and thrive. To support the continuation of SRE, we're asking for your vote. Historically, the school enrolment form has included a question on religious identity, but this has been removed. This question existed to allow both the Department of Education and the SRE community to do the same thing as an enrolment question does about a student's learning needs, the medical history, and that's what that seeks to do today. It allows the school and the SRE community to deploy resources to ensure that students' well-being, the spiritual well-being, is supported in line with the well-being framework of schools. This, finally, helps the Department of Education ensure that appropriate resources and care are offered to all students enrolled in public schools in New South Wales. Since this question has been removed from the Department, it has become increasingly difficult to support SRE in schools. The reality is that schools can't host and SRE teachers can't teach classes in schools if they don't know where the students are. So in standing for New South Wales Parliament in 2023, our question is, are you willing to confirm your support for SRE and commit to seeing the reintroduction of the religious identity question to the school enrolment?
Apologise for the poor quality of sound with that one. Question though is, are you willing to confirm your support for SRE, Scripture in Schools, and commit to seeing the reintroduction of the religious identity question to the school enrolment form? Is that everyone clear with that? Fantastic. Okay, you first.
So, firstly, yes, emphatically, we do support SRE. We would support the re-inclusion of the religious identity question on school enrolment forms. It's an opt-in elective. It's those that do not wish to participate don't have to, and children can be withdrawn at any time. Those not participating in the study can continue with meaningful schoolwork in a different space. It's a win-win situation for all. Kids are still getting educated. The ones that want to be educated in religion have that choice as well. SRE has come under scrutiny. Because of that, we now have the appropriate checks and balances in place. We aren't talking about special religious education for one, but for all. Special religious education has been provided in government-run primary and secondary schools since the 19th century, with 101 religious groups teaching in schools. Although many are Christian, there are also Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, Vedic and Sikh. There's been a lot of contention around what has been included in past curriculums, but as I said, checks and balances have been put in place to ensure that the teachings are appropriate both in age and content. Not only that, but parents and carers now access information on the providers, curriculum and processes. Absolute transparency is available now, so parents and caregivers can know what's being taught and feel in control of that process. Yes, we definitely support it.
Okay, do move to the next.
Thank you. Look, absolutely, we remain committed to special religious education and special education in ethics as well. Just to provide a little bit of context, so the Department of Education actually engaged with stakeholders back in 2018 to review the process of enrolment for special education, special religious education and special education in ethics. So that was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. The previous practice of asking for parents or parents to nominate their religion and then providing SRE on that basis was removed, as it was deemed at that point in time to be in breach of privacy requirements. So that was why the change was originally made. And also the feedback was from the stakeholder feedback was that people were getting slightly, mistakes were being made in a certain way. So you might identify as Christian, but then there may have been a special class for, you identify as Anglican, and there might have been a class that was set up for Christians, but was focusing on a Catholic scenario. So there were people that wanted to identify as Christian, but not necessarily their specific part of Christian. So that was all feedback that was taken on board and led to the fact that the better way of doing it was actually specifically asking the parents after the enrolment was done. So that then let parents talk about the faith and the denomination of the faith specifically, if that makes sense. So at the moment, the Department of Education is delivering a new online application process for SRE and special ed in ethics to make the process smoother again. That's been piloted this year. That'll finish rolling out for next year's enrolments, and that'll make it much easier for schools to capture then the parents' preferences, and it'll be in an online private forum as opposed to on a bit of paper. So well, we know that faith providers have raised, and as the video suggested, raised that question around reintroducing that identity question. But instead of looking at doing that, what we're doing is specifically working closely with providers of SRE, and as I mentioned, that pilot that's happening currently this year, to make sure that the SRE is actually right for the family and for the child. And the aim of that is to have a proper partnership around what members of that family want, members of that school and that faith are bringing to the table. So we'll have parents and schools ensuring that we continue to do SRE in the way that's most appropriate for them and their family, and making sure that we're not at the same time breaching privacy, which was essentially what was brought up at that time.
Good, very good. Now, Josh, thank you.
I'm a big fan of SRE in schools. As someone who taught 6 months of scripture at Dubbo 22 or 3 years ago now. So Labor supports SRE in government schools, believe that it's important students can have a connection with their faith and develop their faith as they grow. Labor also worked towards the reintroduction of the religious identity question on the school enrolment form, as the data will help schools and faith communities better cater to families. Everyone has a belief system, so if we can help people follow that while they're at school and cater to that, much the better.
Alright, test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Great. Alright, we're going to shake it up a little bit now. We're going to go to 1 minute time at the frame.
How many?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah. So these are some of the questions that have come from the floor tonight through the slider, which I'm grateful to God that it knew and worked tonight. So that's who doesn't believe in miracles. Technology works sometimes. So these are a question, and with that one go just release because they're off the cuff. We haven't really prepared for them. Okay. So the first one, and Google will be answering this first, then Josh and then Kate. Yeah. As a member, will you commit to reviewing the basis of water allocation and improving communication with stakeholders?
Sure, I quite understand water allocation for what?
Well, we're agriculture, particularly.
Sorry?
Across the uses from the river.
Okay, across the uses from the river.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, water is absolutely the lifeblood of our community. Can you hear me okay?
I'll give it some more.
Testing. Hello. There we go. So the water is absolutely the lifeblood of our communities. I think we all recognise that. Water sharing plans are at the heart of how that water is used, and there are a number of obviously people that are part of that, everything from the Environmental Water Group, which is a Commonwealth body, through to towns that use water for town supply and agriculture that uses it for food and fibre. We need to make sure we can do everything we can to support all of those. Burradong Dam is currently going through a review to see if we can make the 100%, or make 120% the new 100%, to change the water sharing plan and allow for more water for all users. That's absolutely being worked on in the background. It does mean a change to the water sharing plan in some way, shape or form, but committed to getting there.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Look, I'm not the water minister, so I'll just try and do what I can based on my own observations and readings over the last little while. It's important to regularly and continually review allocations and processes to make sure that we are actually meeting the needs of everyone in the basin. The water use must be sustainable. We've seen problems with harvesting overland flows. There's a whole debate around that, and people tell you about over-allocation and how the whole river system is over-allocated. So I will support looking for that and just check that everything's all right. But as for any changes that need to take place, I'd have to be guided by the water minister, shadow water minister, that have a lot more knowledge in that area than myself.
So I am not a member of a major party, so I can't promise anything regarding water allocation, whether we can increase it, whether we can change it. I can promise you that if I do have the honour to become a member for Dubbo, I will keep the rest of them honest and make sure that the allocations are appropriate for the different areas.
Thank you, Kimberly. Next question will be answered by Josh and Kate and Ruby. How are you going to increase staffing for health services, especially doctors, both GP and specialists, nurses, allied health, etc., in regional areas? So again, how are you going to increase staffing for health services, especially doctors, both GP and specialists, nurses, allied health, etc., in regional areas?
We know that there's been a lot of doctor shortages throughout the whole electorate and nursing shortages. It's all right to have flash new hospitals, but they have to have staff in them. The Labor Party has committed to recruiting an extra 1,200 nurses and midwives over their first term in office should they form government. A lot of that will be from attracting and retaining nurses who have left and midwives who have left due to unsustainable workloads and the wages cap. There are two ways, plus just making the working conditions better, making it a much more attractive profession to stay in, and there's some of the things there. I also read the other day about one of the recommendations to do with having rural GPs training in rural areas, in regional areas, so that they're much more likely to stay out here and be able to service not just Dubbo. I know that the medical centre often has their books full at before 9 o'clock in the morning, but out of town little MPSs as well.
So I think because I work in the health industry at the moment and because I've worked in it for a long time, I'm very aware of the shortages for doctors, nurses, you name it, especially in the hospitals. And it's not just nurses and doctors they need administrative staff, they need radiologists, they need radiographers, they need cleaners, they need, you name it, everybody. And the only way we're going to get them here into this electorate is if we do a recruitment drive for them and give them some kind of incentive to actually come here, settle here. So we have to look at housing as well for them because, as we all know, there's a housing shortage. So that's something that we have to look at as well, supplementing their housing, whether they're here to rent, whether they want to buy. It's got to be something that we can do to retain doctors, nurses and all the staff that we need to make sure that our hospitals are fully staffed 24/7.
Well, glad to see you both agree with exactly what we're currently doing. So, apart from the fact that we do have a key housing strategy for key workers like doctors, nurses, police, teachers, and that's already in place. We also have a scholarship program, a rewards program to retain and attract new nurses, up to 10,000 over the past couple of years that have been targeted. We also have, as a recruitment strategy, actually building modern, up-to-date hospitals. And it works. We've attracted significant numbers of people, specialists included, like to our brand new cath lab at the brand new hospital. So building actual infrastructure that is world-class and nation-leading is part of a recruitment strategy. Just saying you will recruit more doesn't work. You need to have a strategy for that. Part of that is around not just getting new people but incentivising and retaining those that are here. That's exactly what we've been doing. We've introduced for the first time ever a regional health minister in Brian Taylor, who's been out to all our regional centres talking to nurses and doctors about what they need, and it is that attention to detail and being able to retain current staff that really helps.
Thank you, folks. One or two statements or points here that because they've been handed in, I'll read them just so they've been heard, but not a question to you at this stage. I'm concerned that SRE is being blocked by anti-Christian activists. I think we've addressed that. This one is one question to the Labor candidate, which they can answer afterwards. Does Labor support the removal of faith-based criteria in recruiting for staff at Christian schools? So we'll leave that with someone to follow up with Josh afterwards. And one that Dubbo might want to take on board, saying he's the present member, sitting member. At this time, how come there are only one or two ambulances in Dubbo every night? Again, someone can catch you after the meeting to ask you that question. But for this forum, another question that is similar to the one just asked. That question was about health. This one is about schools. And it will be first answered by Kate, then Dougal, then Josh. What are your plans for improving the staffing of regional schools, especially by retaining teachers?
So I was actually horrified to hear that one school in Dubbo is short 12 teachers. There's a shortage of 3,000 teachers across the state. I can't fix that. My party can't fix that, even if we are elected. It floors me that this has been allowed to happen, that there's been no retention of teachers or incentive for them to actually stay in the education system. Teachers are as important, if not more important, than doctors, than nurses, than all our healthcare providers. And I was absolutely floored. One school, short 12 teachers, one school in this town. So add that all up. If you've got one or two teachers short in every single school in the state, it doesn't take long for the numbers to add up, and then you really become aware of what your children and your grandchildren are missing out on.
Look, there is definitely, like there is with nurses and doctors, there is definitely a shortage of teachers in regional areas and in some metropolitan areas as well. Again, the reason why the current education minister has significantly uplifted pay and given training opportunities and scaling up opportunities for teachers to actually retrain and try and attain higher levels to earn more money. We're talking about earning up to $152,000 and principles that goes above. So there is a new way of trying to retain teachers, and that is providing more opportunities for them to train to a higher level and provide a higher level of teaching. Not everyone wants to do that, but for those who do, there is that possibility there. And like we were talking about with the nurses and the doctors, they are another recipient of key worker housing. So there is huge opportunities across regional New South Wales, including in our western region, to actually become a teacher, housing provided, a great income and have great support there. We need to do as much as we can to train and retain locally as well, and that's what we'll continue to do.
As a teacher for the last, must be in my 22nd year. I'm acutely aware of this staffing crisis. The first thing that the Labor Party will do is admit that there's a crisis, unlike the Education Minister. One of the major problems is the unsustainable workloads where teachers are burnt out. Labor has a policy of reducing teacher admin hours by 5 hours per week, also reducing the wages cap where wages are being held at an uncompetitive level. Labor will, in government, will convert 10,000 temporary teachers, people who can't get a permanent job, into permanent positions. Even if people don't like teachers, ultimately a school with 12 or 13 teachers away affects the students' learning, and that's one of the biggest problems. TAFE has been completely decimated over the years. As for the 200 positions at $152,000 as a school teacher, I'll just look at that and just shake my head.
Another one I don't think is for the forum, but I'll mention it. Why hasn't a toilet block been built at the truck stop on the new highway in the zoo? At least 12 trucks stop there every night. Good question.
And if I answer that, I'll talk about that today.
You can catch up afterwards with Julie for that one. This is a bit of an interesting question to finish on, I think. This might, challenge you a little bit. And it's probably not just a question for you guys, but for us as well. I think you'll be comfortable in answering this. If you're God, what would be high on your priority of things to fix in our society? Or in another way, it's been put to same sort of question. If you're God, what would you do to fix the problems of the world? If you're comfortable in answering that sort of question, folks? Yeah. All right. And guess who's first?
Very happy days. Look, it is a slightly odd question, but it takes me back to, as weird as this will sound, when COVID first happened, people were really nice to each other, weren't they? For a short period of time, do you remember that? They were even nice to me. True. It was a breath of fresh air for everyone. Everyone felt supported because everyone felt like we were in something together. It was no one's fault that no one could fix magically, but we needed to support each other. That's what I like to see. I don't want COVID to happen again, don't worry. But I think that showed us what we can, and it sort of goes to exactly the sort of teachings that you would be talking about regularly in a place like this, is supporting each other no matter what the difference is. COVID taught us we can do better than what we currently do. I sort of predicted at the time it would only take 6 months for people to start throwing rocks again, and I was pretty right. I would like to see us return to that.
I'm probably along the same lines as Julie with that. I just believe that you treat people the way you want to be treated. If you want to be treated with respect, then you treat people with respect. You always tell the truth, you don't lie, because it gets you into so much trouble anyway. And if you believe in a faith, then use that faith and make you a stronger person, and just care about each other. You know, a random act of human kindness doesn't hurt. It makes you feel really good inside.
Thank you. Big question. Really, greed and selfishness are some of the biggest problems that are really causing a lot of problems in the world between people. A lot of things can be traced back to people's individual greed and selfishness. I've observed over the years, one way that we can change that is to put ourselves in others' places, treat others as we would like to be treated, treat others better than we would like to be treated by putting others first. And the question was about if you're God, the God of the Bible, it's about loving others. So, thank you.
Well, let's show our appreciation to the candidates. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for those who are watching online tonight and through the week ahead. Let's continue to pray for all the candidates here locally, but all around the state. And a responsible job. I often have thought, particularly when I was younger, trying to work out where I'd like to go in life. And one thing I thought, I'd never want to be a politician. I thought I couldn't put up with all the naughty things that people say about you, but what a great responsibility it is. And we need great politicians to help us as a nation and as a state and as a local community. So I'll bow and give thanks as we conclude tonight's ceremony and time together. Lord, we thank you for tonight, the opportunity to have the voice to share the questions that people have brought. We give thanks for the openness and the learnedness of our candidates in applying themselves to the questions, those prepared and those on the spot. We pray for them in the coming days and the weeks ahead, for them and their teams to support people. And we pray that your will be done, Lord, here on earth as in heaven. Amen. Well, thank you again, folks. If you want to ask one of your questions, I'm sure that Kembo's going to be too problemed by that. But thank you again for your attendance.